Greetings, and salutations to those of you, to all my viewers, listeners, and subscribers to the show. Welcome to the first episode of 2022. Yes, it's been a long year from 2021 leading up till now, but we have a lot to cover this year, a lot more to cover than we have in previous years. But again, welcome to the Unapologetically Black, Uncensored, Unfiltered podcast, Speak to the Mic. I am your illustrious host, Marlon Joseph. Be sure for all of my listeners who aren't subscribers to this show on Spotify and my YouTube page, be sure to like, share, subscribe to this YouTube page as well as Spotify for previous episodes as well as what's to come. And I will be making some announcements in upcoming weeks or so in regards to what to look forward to in this new year and this show. Joining me today is a person who I can't thank highly enough and can't even think of highly enough in regards to her knowledge and her experience in the real estate industry. She has been ordained by my wife and I as our new auntie, who we love dearly so much for all the help and information she's been able to give us. And I felt the need to not only have this information and apply it for myself and my own family, but I wanted you all to share this same experience with me, with gaining the knowledge and experience and information from this beautiful hearted person who has been in the industry for over 20 years. I can't thank her enough. I can't even speak highly enough of her because I love and adore her so much for everything she's been able to help us do. So just a quick backstory before I even give you her proper introduction. She is, not only did she help me and my wife find our first house, she also helped us sell our first house and buying our new second house, which we are currently in now, enjoying, appreciating all the aspects in the neighborhood that we live in, and definitely thank her a million times more for all that she's done for us in regards to this. And so, and the many work she's been doing with helping more and more of our youth in our generation with becoming homeowners. And so Donna Munkin is a real estate, a realtor in the Atlanta industry, preferably in Atlanta, but she's been in this industry for over 20 years. And she has been doing wonderful things with helping young people who have young families establish themselves as homeowners. And so joining me today, Donna, thank you so much for being on this show. I know we have been like back and forth about trying to get our schedules right, and definitely glad that we're able to finally do that and be on the show today, to have you on the show to disperse as much information as you can about what it means to become a homeowner, especially in today's time when it comes to taking advantage of this pandemic, which has been the silver lining in this because of so many different offers and incentives when it comes to being a homeowner in today's real estate industry. So thank you so much for being on this show to talk to me today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marlon, thank you, first of all, for thinking enough for me to invite me to be a part of your show. I know we had to navigate trying to coordinate the schedule to accommodate it, but I just want to tell you that I'm very honored to be here with all of your listening audience. So let me say one of the reasons why I got into real estate, because I really wasn't trying to do real estate per se, even though my mom persuaded me for many years. One of the reasons that I got into real estate is because I saw a need. I had a situation, and this happened more than once, where I thought I had a real estate professional who was out there advocating on our behalf, only to find out that when I would contact her for like an update or what is the next step, what are we doing next, or are we waiting on an offer, what are we doing? I could not find them. I mean, there were like a couple of days I tried to reach out to my real estate agent, and she was not available. And I saw this again with another scenario where I tried to reach out to my, thinking I had a partner in the business to assist me with doing real estate to the point that I could find a home, because we were still relatively new, even though, I think she thought because it was my mom in the business that I had some magical formula that we knew what to do.
Yeah.
But we were entrusting that she was going to be the one to assist us. And there again, I felt like she dropped the ball and another individual. So it created this sense of need to me that there exists professional individuals who have the wherewithal and the knowledge who are not connecting with the potential supply and demand. They have the supply, but the demand is the individuals that you're working with that have need of this product.
Yeah.
So it created this sense in me that, hey, you see a problem, why don't you join in and be a part of fixing it, remedying the problem? So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I got into it. I wasn't one of those folks that said, I'm gonna get in real estate so I can make money, so I can just be one of the big ballers and the shot callers. That wasn't me. I really saw a need, and me getting paid was just the benefit of me doing the service that I provided. But the need was, for me, was people need individuals help them navigate through the largest purchase that they'll do, most folks, in their lifetime. So they need to know that they have an individual that person is in their corner and is going to be there from beginning of the process, starting with the pre-approval all the way up to the part of the closing. Sure, you want to show up for the closing, but what could I find you all those other weeks and days prior to, when I needed information, I needed guidance as to what I need to be doing next, how I need to navigate through all of the various challenges that you may face.
Yeah.
So let me say that one of the things that I would recommend, talking about the fundamentals of home ownership with buyer purchase, is that buyers select a professional realtor based on someone else's recommendation and experience.
Absolutely.
The greatest accomplishment that anybody can have is to have a referral in this business. Absolutely. You don't want to be a one-hit wonder. I wonder what happened to them. But to get that repeat business speaks volumes to that person having a continued relationship with individuals, so much so that they want to do that transaction again with them.
Yeah.
So I know the internet is big and everybody's Googling everything, and I'm all for that to a degree. But when it comes to real estate, you better get somebody you can trust, somebody who is going to be with you. One of the reasons why I even connected with Marlon is because somebody referred him to me. He didn't just pick me out of a hat, throw it up and hope for the best. He figured if that person who referred me, he had high respect for that individual, they would only send him someone who he felt would be a good connection or fit that could really be the professional person he needed for his home ownership.
Yep.
So I highly recommend that.
Yep. That's the beauty.
I can't say enough about making sure that you get a referral from somebody who you value and trust, that they're giving you the right person. Because you can read all the Google reviews and they can be a little suspect because I don't know who's giving them. They could be all their family members for all we know.
Yep. Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, networking and recommendations go a long way, especially when it comes to the Black community, because a lot of times we get discouraged just by those referrals that we're getting because that person may not have enough experience in that area, or they may not just have that type of relationship fervor within them to even get to know that person that they've been referred to. And so a lot of times that does get in the way of the success of that particular transaction, whether it be with a realtor and that buyer or that potential buyer, or them being able to just say, okay, well, at least give me some advice on how I should go about looking for someone in this area to, basically help me with becoming a homeowner. So yeah, I mean, that from that standpoint, I do appreciate that, because we oftentimes overlook a lot of those nuances, right? And when it comes to becoming a potential buyer, and when it becomes even in some aspects of that, being a potential realtor, because there are a lot of different things that you said that has to be taken into account when starting out as a realtor. What would you say some of the things that helped you early on in your career, even as a realtor starting off, versus what you see now that's a difference maker in your 20 plus years versus when you first started?
I went into the business with the idea that if I was going to be in it, I needed to be fully in it.
Absolutely.
So even though I had other work and career experiences, and all of those, I was committed while I was in that period. That were all different phases of my life. But when I decided to become a realtor, to make that leap of faith, I went all out. I put everything in it. I learned everything I could. I got as much training as I could. I garnered information from individuals by networking for information from other individuals. Okay, so how are you doing? What are you doing? What are your strategies? What are you seeing done now? Okay, so what have you seen change? So I network with a lot of seasoned and experienced realtors who gave me input, and collectively I gathered that information and then made a kind of a statement for myself
You
that
gotta make
I
your own.
needed to.
Yep. Gotta make
Right.
your own.
I needed to give them everything that I have. Kind of why you wanted to do this for your audience. You want to be able to give them something that you've received because you benefited from it. So that's what I took that information that was given to me, and I wanted to share that and give that to individual. Because at the end of the day, the greatest joy that I as a realtor will ever have is to see individuals become homeowners.
Absolutely.
Because when you're changing family dynamics, when you're raising individuals from a level of a financial status to another level of financial status,
Yep.
It is the greatest joy to know that you had some type of intricate part in that.
Absolutely.
To take them from being a renter to being a homeowner to now that they've been a homeowner for so many years, now they want to list their home and become a, we call it the move up buyer. So just being a part of all of those different aspects of their financial growth is so rewarding to me.
Absolutely. And the irony in you saying that, especially about the show, is that, and I meant to say this in my introduction. So the point of this show is to provide helpful and useful content and information to those in the Black community, and speak to Black men and women of all professions, sectors, as well as organizations, in regards to their profession and how they're using their profession to help move the culture forward in a positive light. And so with you doing the wonderful things you've been doing in real estate industry, it's been helping so many of our young people and even some of our older people who are looking for homes too. And so I do appreciate that with you saying that, because that's the whole premise of this show, is to be able to disperse this type of information to those people who are looking to either become, in this particular episode, become a realtor or even become a potential homeowner. And so and kind of transitioning over to that homeowner aspect of it, because in the Black community, the unfortunate thing is a lot of misnomers and misconceptions when it comes to home ownership is, oftentimes that fear is put on us, and that discouraging point is put on us to not become homeowners because of what we saw family members and loved ones go through in certain situations when it became time for them to become homeowners, or when some of them may have lost their homes in foreclosures and things like that. So what are some of the misnomers about home ownership that you have come across in your 20 plus years of experience, when people have said, okay, I initially wanted to become a homeowner, but now it's like, I don't think it's for me because of X, Y, and Z. And it's been some of those misnomers that's been given to them as to why it discouraged them from becoming a potential homeowner.
I think it has to do with the fact that we see home ownership as something that's way off in the near distance. It's for somebody else.
Yeah.
We don't grasp this concept that it is for us now. We are so comfortable with renting and paying another person for our roof and our shelter that we never see it as something that we should be fully vested and committed to doing also.
Absolutely.
And I think part of the misconception is that people see home ownership has been something so astronomically financial taxing on them that how am I ever going to be able to afford it? Where am I going to get the money? Oh, what if something breaks down? I'm used to being in an apartment where people were fixing it. Now it's going to be on me. So it's all of those things that we see the negative. We see the glass has half empty more than we see the glass half full. Absolutely. In that, if I come from this mentality that if you can pay rent and be consistent with your rent, you are definitely a candidate that can purchase because you already have a history of being financially stable if you're paying your rent consistently on time. A lot of cases, particularly for my first-time home buyer, it's amazing to them that when they purchase a home, their mortgage payment with taxes and insurance included is less than what they were paying for rent, or not much more than what they were paying for rent.
Yep. In some aspects, absolutely. And that's another key thing that people need to understand too, is that, Would you rather pay this amount of money in just basically renting one unit, or would you rather get some incentives on the back end of that, with that being an investment? Because becoming a homeowner is really more about responsibility than it is about anything else, right? So
Absolutely.
the point that you brought up with having to fix things around the house, that if it needs repair, it needs replaced, any upgraded, things like that, that does fall on you. But that shows the responsibility that you have in this investment. This is something that you're invested in for a long time, hopefully. And so you want to make sure that you get all that you want out of it and making it your own. And so a lot of times I've had, different arguments with people who saying, well, renting is no different than paying a mortgage because you're still paying somebody. Well, the big difference is, and you can speak to this, is that when you're renting, you're basically renting for that unit, versus paying a mortgage. You're paying to become the sole owner of that particular property at some point in time, given whatever that term is for that particular home that you purchase. But even still, you're getting much more out of paying a mortgage than you are paying rent. And so a lot of times people get so caught up and so complacent in, okay, well, yeah, like you said, the responsibilities fall on somebody else. I pay my rent, they gonna do this and do that and take care of that, versus, well, it's only so much that you can do to that property or to that unit as far as renovation, because you're trying to renovate an apartment. They're not going to let you do that because you don't technically own that unit. So you can only have but so many different things given to you as far as the responsibilities go. But when you become a homeowner, you making that home your own. And that's exactly the key phrase in that. And so people do need to oftentimes see the difference and understand that there is a huge difference between renting and paying a mortgage. And so I know you said something about that too, as far as that being one of the misconceptions when it comes to homeownership and renting. And then also the responsibility piece that people oftentimes don't want to have anything to do with. So they become complacent and wanted to just do enough and say, hey, this is all I need. But in all actuality, when you become financially stable and responsible to do these things, now it's time to level up, because now it's time to build on that generational wealth that you want to leave for your kids. And home ownership actually is included in that, because this is a huge asset and investment that you're going to invest in. The biggest asset you're going to invest in your entire life when it comes down to it. And so, yeah, I do appreciate you for saying that.
Yeah. So just think about what you just said too. I want to piggyback on that. So if you're renting, let's say worst case scenario happens in life, the person passes who was renting. All right, so they're renting, it passed, that unit is gone, they re-rent it to somebody else. Let's say that same person had a property that they had paid for. They pass, now that property now can be sold and provide wealth for your family even after that person is gone. Case in point, you were still paying about the same, but now you've left something that's an asset to your family, as opposed to just person passing and all that unit is gone, and then that landlord just went on with whoever was next in line to get that unit. Yep, as opposed to the other scenario where someone has something that is tangible that they can leave for their family members, leave for generations to come to help. And that's kind of something that I can speak to this as a person of color, is that we need to really consider that more so than just that mentality of just enough. I don't know what happened to us that we went from one phase till we just got to this just enough. I just want to just get just enough for me and my four to be comfortable, and I'm good with it. You ought to be aspiring to want to have more for your family than just enough. Every generation ought to be building a certain sense of financial wealth for the next generation to be propelled on. Okay, so yeah, maybe you didn't get yours. Maybe you pulled yourself up out of bootstraps. I get it. Everybody got to do what you did. I get that. But just think about how much easier it would be for the generation behind you if there was something tangible for them to give or to receive, and then they pass it on to their generation. So let's say 100 years come and gone, Big Mama left this house, everybody and their mama has lived in it, and everybody has benefited from it. Now everybody called it the family house. Where Big Mama passes, we don't even know we're going to get together. Where we going? We don't even know, because we don't have a family house. Yep. I mean, we just need to start thinking more long-term than just this comfort of just being comfortable right now.
Absolutely.
Because it will keep us stuck in this, where we keep plateauing on life.
Yep.
And we can't blame everybody for everything. Okay, so yeah, people have done some things to people of color. We all know that. We're not here to bash anybody. All I'm saying is, how long we gonna stay stuck like Chuck?
Yep.
What we gonna do to improve on our financial aspect? Because the truth of the matter is, we think we can't, but in most cases, I had individuals who were working on Fortune 500 companies living
Yeah.
in low income housing. Fortune 500 companies that have been there for years,
Wow.
living in low income housing. What is wrong with this picture? But I went to this individual and I told them, you're better than where you are. I don't think I don't make enough money. I said, well, have you ever talked to anybody to inquire, or is that just in your head? Well, I think it's just in my, maybe I know I've never talked to anybody, but I'm looking at my bills and my expenses and my da, and I just don't see how I can afford a house. I said, okay, if I can help show you how you can do that, will you be willing to move forward? Well, of course I would be. I want to get out of here. I don't like it over here. Okay. And once we did that, how about that person had like top-notch credit, closed in like 30, 45 days. They're still in their house to this day, to this very day.
See, that's a testimony, and that's a testament to the very things that we speak about. So a lot of times we talk ourselves out of things that we know is best for us and our families until we meet that person, i.e. Miss Donna Monkey, who we met, who talked us into this idea that, okay, and transition over to this question. This is a very valid point about the money situation. So a lot of times people have been told, and this is a huge misnomer about homeownership, is that, oh, I got to have like half of this down. I got to have like, or 75% of this. And it's like, okay, how am I going to be able to afford this and be able to have this much money down for this particular house? So in regards to that, because we see even in situations with us, preferably in the Black community, we sometimes bite off more than we can chew, right? So when it comes to basically trying to look for our dream house to first go round versus a startup home, because you mentioned that key phrase earlier in this segment when we was talking about this. A startup home is something that you just get to start off with, to basically build that wealth, to build your credit up, to build that to establish yourself as a homeowner in that instance. And so that way, when the time comes, yet again, to sell this house, gain equity from it, and then take it and put it towards the bigger house and possibly your dream house, depending on where you are financially. Now you can sit up and say you've made that transition the right way into from a startup house to your dream house, versus trying to bite off more than you can chew. And then you end up either having your house in foreclosure and have the liens on your house and things like that too. What are some of those things from a financial standpoint that you've heard or have even experienced in your own experience when it comes to dealing with people who've had those things being told to them about how much money they need to have up front and just how much money overall they'll need to have in order to really sustain themselves in paying this mortgage?
That's a very good question. So what I tell individuals is to think of this as your step one from renting, or your step one of moving out of the parents' home. And everything in life is a progression. Absolutely. This mentality that you're going to start off and I'm going straight on to Sandy Springs and I'm going to get my house next to the big wig. Come on, people. We got to be realistic.
We got to be realistic.
We got to be realistic. We have to start somewhere. Absolutely. If you prove yourself faithful to this small thing, the Bible says that if you prove yourself to be faithful on the small things, then he will give you the larger. But we don't want to do the larger. We want to start off at the penthouse. We want to start off at the top notch, looking for, this high elaborate list of things. And I'm just like, bring that on back, baby. I get it, but that's not you right now. You're going to get there. Yep. But let's start off with right here. This Absolutely. Is where your money is. This is where your pre-approval is. It might not be your dream house, in all likelihood, your first time around. But this is just step one. You don't have to stay there forever. No. You're not like you have to just take clothes and then I'm here and then that's call it a day. I'm never moving from this place. Absolutely not. Yeah. This is a stepping stone. So you take this step, you do this well, then you can ask to do more because you've proven yourself faithful for the small things. Yep. And then when you do, it gives you a sense of comfort. If, for example, let's say you got a 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment.
Yeah.
Clean that place up first.
Yep.
You keep telling yourself you're going to clean up where you're going. No, you're not. You're going to do the same behavior.
Absolutely.
You haven't proven yourself faithful over that. So that when you do get your home, you're in the habit of maintaining already having a level of cleanliness. All you're doing now is adding some additional rooms to that work level.
Yep.
And stop telling yourself what you can't do and tell yourself what you can do. You can be financially stable and secure if you choose to do that.
Absolutely.
But if you want to make, I'm just going to try to step out here on faith kind of thing, you know you couldn't afford that. Why would you put yourself out there in that type of situation? So it's having those realistic conversations with first-time home buyer specifically, and even when individuals want to move up, for them to really look at it. I get it. When we bought our first house, we went through the fear factor too. Yeah. But I took the position that, you know, we're paying rent already at X price. This is not going to be much different than what we were already paying. So let's just go ahead and do it. And at the end of the day, it will be ours. If we want to change the paint color to orange, that's on us. Yep. Where you couldn't do that before. You didn't have that latitude when we were renting. So I'm saying all that to say that we need to be financially responsible also with where we are with steps in life, everything in life. You didn't just hand a child 18 years old no keys to no Maserati, or at least most people don't. Okay,
if you don't come for money, absolutely, yeah.
You get your little hoopty, you see yourself, you do all right with that, you maintain that, then you get the next step. That's the same thing. That's that same mindset. Yep. So if I say nothing else to the audience, I want them to know that real estate is a progression. I don't care if you're even going to be an investor. You don't start off buying $500,000 property to invest. People start off small. Yep. You get comfortable with those, learn all the ins and outs on that, and then you can expand your portfolio to some larger asset. But I just think we just need to use some more wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny you say that too, because I've oftentimes said this too. So you have to get carried before you crawl, or you got to crawl before you walk. You can't sit up here and come out of the womb already running. Like it just don't work that way. So it's progress, it's levels to this. And so if we understand just the bare minimums when we're starting off with this startup home, this is to establish ourselves financially, because in all honesty, when it comes to these home loans, these banks are looking at you as an investment. They want to know that you are trustworthy with the money they're giving you to be able to be financially responsible to pay it back with this startup home, or with any home for that matter. But at least you're being able to say, okay, you know what? I'm in this particular financial bracket or this tax bracket. I can financially handle this. And even still, this is one thing that you told me and my wife both, that stuck with me and still sticks with me to this very day, is that you want to make sure that you purchase a home that is so affordable that if you or your spouse loses their job, at least the other person can sustain that for the time being until times get better, until that time comes where that spouse is able to get rehired somewhere, or anything of that nature. But if you're a single parent, single mother, or single father, you want to be able to sustain that amount to where financially you can handle this, and a bit of something else for that matter if something else comes up, especially if you have 1 or 2 children that you're taking care of in that given moment of time. But it's being able to say, I can handle this financially because I've been responsible up to this point. Let me add a little more responsibility to this list of things that I can do so that I can establish myself fully to get to that place where I ultimately want to be. And so to a point that you made earlier about how leaving the house to your family, or to even your children preferably, this is something that they can invest in, because once you completely pay that house off, all you're doing now is paying the property tax of that house. And depending on where you live, like geographically, like some of those dynamics look completely different depending on the city and state that you live in. So the property tax aren't going to be the same as it is in other cities and states. Some may be a lot less, some may be a little bit more, depending on the neighborhood that you live in. But that comes along with the type of research that you have to do with the neighborhood, the school districts, the different venues, and all of the different businesses that you can patronize with. A lot of those different things come to play when it comes to researching that area that you're looking to live in, because you can see a house that's beautiful, but may not be in the most idealistic neighborhood that you actually want your kids to grow up in too. So that all comes along with that whole opportunity of researching this very thing. It takes a lot of in this process. People oftentimes kind of misunderstand or even just kind of overstep what those little nuggets of information can actually consist of. So we have to be very conscientious about this because, again, this is a huge investment. The biggest investment that you ever make in your life is purchasing a home, because you're either going to stay in this home long term, or it's going to be a home, like you said, a startup home for at least a couple of years to establish yourself so that you can move into a bigger home and even possibly even move into a condo if that's what your preference is. But it's understanding financially you're establishing yourself, because we as Black people, we oftentimes, more times than not, we're starting from the ground up when it comes to building that financial wealth, that generational wealth. So we're not coming from money. So we have to start somewhere, to your point, and be able to sustain that level of success, and so that we can obviously put more on our plate to handle when it comes to that responsibility. So I do appreciate you for saying that. And leading to my next question too, in regards to this, especially given the times that we're living in right now, we're now going on 2 years in this pandemic, which has been overwhelmingly stressful to say the least. But there's still been some silver linings in dealing with this pandemic, especially when it comes to real estate, in the real estate industry. So what are some of the things that you're seeing in a positive sense when it comes to being able to have more people take advantage of the different incentives and the different offers that have come about, with it being such a demand, but yet houses are basically in short supply when it comes to people trying to purchase new homes or already established homes, depending on how old the homes are? What have you been seeing throughout this pandemic when it comes to people, purchasing or repurchasing homes, or even selling homes for that matter?
I think one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is the need for a home is even more critical.
Absolutely.
Let's take, for example, an individual who is staying in an apartment building, and no shade on anybody, I'm just using the scenario.
Yeah.
They're living in an apartment complex and they want to go out and play with their children, want to go out and play. Well, can't go to the playground. Last person there might have had COVID. We don't know. So then you got to keep your child from that one. You can't keep wiping out every monkey bar and every swing everywhere you go. So then you have this other case where the person who purchased a home, they may not be able to go anywhere, but they go in their backyard and sit on the back porch and watch their kids play ball.
Yep.
They can put up a little swing set and let the child go out there and play on the swing set and enjoy them, or trampoline, or whatever that outdoor activity may be. Yep. Where they didn't have that previously. So you're locked into these small spaces and not having anywhere to go. Mentally, that's somewhat discouraging in that light. So being able to have that home where you at least had some type of yard space, front or back, that's an area where you can go out and get some fresh air and not have to be next to other folks and worry about whether or not I'm getting exposed to someone who already has the virus. Homeownership will always be at the top of anybody's choice of what they're going to do in life, because everybody wants shelter. That's the number reason why homeownership has always thrived, because we all need shelter. I mean, the car is a great place. We love our cars, but at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do in them. Okay. So that's why homeownership is a great aspect. So that you have places to relax, to eat, to during the downturn about a few years ago in the 2008 and 2009 when the market tanked. Yeah. The reason the market could finally rebound is that there's always going to be a need.
Absolutely.
There we had a situation where people were put in houses that they literally could not afford, because nobody looked down to say, hey, this interest rate was going to change. What you going to do when the interest rate adjusts, because you got an adjustable rate.
Yep.
And some of the things that have come out of that has been a lot of corrective behaviors that have happened, particularly from the financial aspect. More often than not, most financial institutions that approve buyers, they are going to scrutinize that buyer a lot more now than they did previously.
Yeah.
So potentially this buyer who is approved for this loan really does now have the potential. And they're very few adjustable rate mortgages. So you're not having as many folks, even the ones they get them, they're just a very small percentage versus most folks want to say, I want to do fixed. Let me just stay right here. I know what my payments are going to be with the exception of my taxes and insurance. I know my principal and my interest is going to stay the same. So when you create that, no matter what type of environment it is in, a pandemic, market housing, downturn, whatever, the need for housing will always be there because people need to have something they feel secure in and feel safe and have an environment where they can go in and out of and have their own way of doing their what they call family.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? To that point, I will say this too. It has provided such warmth and comfortability here in our new house. The fact that my first house, I remember mentioning this to my wife. I was like, listen, I want my man cave. I want this. I want the whole nine. And she was just like, she and I both talked about it. Like, well, listen, we may have to cut back on some things that we want out of this first house. And it was like, okay, you know what? I'm willing to compromise that because even with talking to you about this really helped me bring a lot of things in perspective in regards to that home security. And so once we got into this new house, and even with this pandemic happening the way it's been happening, I've been grateful enough to have had not only having the man cave set up, I've been, taking time out each and every week, setting up the man cave the way I wanted to, having a theater room, having all my game systems set up, and having a bar too, because occasionally you just want to sit down and just have a drink because not being able to go outside, sometimes it's frustrating, but at the same time, it is cost efficient because now I'm not spending money on going to restaurants, things like that all the time, or spending money on a drink when I have a whole bar here, and I'm making sure I have libation here for me to enjoy with the comfort in the comfort of my own home. So from that standpoint, I do appreciate that because we have been able to at least enjoy those types of perks when it comes to having our own home and making it our own, because we're in the process of renovating different aspects of our house to make it look more like us than anything else. But even still, you have some people who've purchased or looking to purchase new homes, and there's a lot of perks to that too. So one of the perks that I did appreciate is the fact that with a brand new house, brand new appliances and things like that, all the bells and whistles that obviously are brand new, you don't have to worry about any maintenance or things like that being done anytime soon. You don't have to worry about your warranty obviously expiring anytime soon. So from that aspect, it's pretty easy going when it comes to managing that house because it's a brand new house. And if something happens to it, if things need to get altered or need to get upgraded, then obviously that would be to your prerogative. But at the same token, you don't have to worry about fixing things, no time soon and having to spend additional money on that because it's already established there. But the difference is between that and purchasing an already existing home that's been around for a couple of years. It may be some things around that you need to upgrade, and that's fine. But as long as you're in that financial standing, in good financial standing, to be able to be responsible for that, then you can ultimately change it to the way you want it to. So versus the way you bought it versus the way you upgraded to, the upgrade is going to be exactly what you want it to look like, what you want it to be, because it fits you more than what you got out of it initially. And so those are the type of things that we have to take into account too when it comes to the differences between buying a new home and buying a home that's been around for a couple of years. But I want to ask you this too in regards to the pandemic when it comes to the amount of money or the interest rates and how it fluctuates. So tell me, how does that work when it comes to the different interest rates on different home loans? Or is it based on strictly credit? Is it based on the amount of money that the person or people or individuals make? Like what are the different nuances to that?
So most lenders look at the financial stability of the borrower, being the buyer.
Right.
And they look at them and as far as what is their credit rating, what is their work history,
Yeah.
what is their asset for a saving? Do they have a savings or they just started out the gate? So they kind of take in the information regarding the buyer, this borrower, to look at the total picture of whether they are financially stable.
Yeah.
The more financially stable a buyer presents to the lender, the better the credit will be, meaning that they'll get off. If your credit rating is above a certain point, then you'll get the better interest rate.
Absolutely.
They may make that loan to that same borrower, but their credit rating is a little less favorable, then they're going to get a little higher interest rate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So to that point, I say that, which is key for borrowers. When you know that you're considering buying a home, particularly for first-time home buyer, is to start financially reining in some of your spending. I want to say loose spending, but some of your spending.
Yep.
We don't have to eat out every single night, maybe once a week.
Right. We don't have to.
We don't have to. Would we want to? Yes. Do we have to? That's a different, that I'll let you answer that.
Yeah.
But start thinking of ways how we can start preserving a little bit more of a nest egg, so to speak,
Yeah.
where we are, okay, so I'll go to the grocery store, I'll get my list of things that I'm going to cook and be responsible for, cook over for a few days, so it'll last for a few days. I don't have to cook every night. You will be amazed at the amount of money that you're not wasting, that you have more for saving. One of the things that I've heard in the pandemic from a number of family members is that they've been able to save a lot of money not going out to eat and not traveling. I heard one family member say they paid off a lot of the bills.
Yep.
I mean, we have a lot of discretionary funds that we could really rein in some of that spending, particularly if you know that you're wanting to purchase a home. So we can have, so if if you want to purchase a home for X amount of money and the lender says your down payment is X, you already got X plus Y.
Yep. Absolutely.
We trying to get up to X by the time we close.
Absolutely. I mean, the more money that you have presented to the bankers and to those investors who are looking to give you this home loan, the better you look, and the better
That's right.
with basically investing in you and knowing that you are financially responsible enough to have this money be given to you, knowing that it's going to be paid back within that interest rate that you obviously are given. And so, yeah, and you know what? I will say this too, and one of the most unfortunate things about us when it comes to spending, and I've said this on a number of occasions on the show, is that with the understanding that the black dollar stays in the house or stays in our pockets for 5 minutes versus how long it stays in our white counterparts or in our Asian counterparts for that matter, or even Hispanics. We spend more, and we oftentimes we make less but spend more. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most unfortunate and daunting things about us when it comes to financial responsibility. We're not taught this early on in our lives to be financially responsible, to save, to invest in the right things. And we're oftentimes trying to just keep up with the Joneses and trying to just spend money to basically impress people who don't care about us anyway. It's just what purpose are you serving by just trying to one up somebody else and saying, well, I got this and you don't have this. But what else do you have to show for it? You know what I mean? It's right. Like it goes back to the whole mindset of like income tax season 2. We're oftentimes spending all this money thinking that, oh yeah, this is we get this money. Well, in all actuality, income tax money is the money that you came last year, basically. So the money that the IRS took from you, they're giving it back to you in as a return. And basically that money should be given to you with the incentive, with the idea to invest in something that you need long-term, not something that you want right now. And it's just like, we go broke trying to look rich. And that's been one of our biggest issues that we have to fix within ourselves. It's so much ingrained in us to do that we literally have to like talk to ourselves and say, all right, I'm not going to buy this today. I don't need that. I can wait. You can wait till it go on sale. And now it's on sale. Guess what? Now you're spending way less money than you would have initially spent on it had you bought it initially on the retail price. So it's just those types of ways of things and thinking that we have to change, and we have to oftentimes be reminded of, because again, building generational wealth should be a primary goal for all of us because we don't come from money. And so part of that is investing in ourselves and investing in our family and our futures, our family's future when it comes to that. And home ownership has been a great deal of help when it comes to that for us, because looking at my credit score and my wife's credit score now, we're coming closer and closer to 800 now, and I feel so good about that, knowing that it's been so many different times in my life where family members of mine been in situations where their credit scores are hit. We oftentimes holistically in the Black community, we putting stuff in our kids' names and our trying to get over, and like it's like we have to break from that mindset, because that's a generational curse that's been passed down to so many of our generations of children in the Black community, that it's been so daunting to have to undo that. Sometimes it takes a lot longer to undo than the initial plan to do it in the first place. And so if we're very, very much so conscientious about these types of things, I think we can avoid so much more of this happening in the future, because we shouldn't be going to the next generation of children or raising the next generation of children with having the previous generation's issues for them to have to deal with. Every generation needs to deal with their own set of issues to work with and work around in order to basically advance in life. We shouldn't be having to break all these generational curses for us, for my generation. At least we're the millennials. We having to fix generations prior to us and our own. That's too much. That's too much in a lifetime, and it ain't even enough time in a day, much less enough years in a lifetime to fix these things. And so we have to be much more conscientious about these types of things in order to financially get us in a better place in life. And again, speaking of home ownership, I can't speak highly enough of it, because so many different perks around being in this position that we're in right now. I'm able to build on this. We're able to build on this for our children and for their children too, hopefully. The point is to build for a generation you won't be alive to see. That's the point. That above all else, if we're not doing that, then the mission already has failed, at least to my estimate. And so in learning these things and being able to disperse this type of information to those who are listening, to those who want to hear this type of stuff, I'm always all ears, looking to talk to these experts like yourself and others in all industries, so that we can help advance our culture, because there's so much that we don't know. And then it's so much that we don't know until we get to a place where now, okay, it's presented to us and we see that we don't know this. And we've missed so much time and opportunity to learn it, that now we're still playing catch up. Now it's time to stop doing that now. And again, being a homeowner is about responsibility. And people like yourself who've been in this industry for so many years, you've been able to ease so many minds into going into this and understanding that, okay, it's okay to be nervous about it when it's your first time. But guess what? Because you've been responsible with this list of responsibilities, you can add to it now and be able to say, I am a responsible homeowner now. I can pay my property tax. I can pay my HOA if you live in a community that requires that, right? These types of things, because you're in a much more of a financial place, a lot better than you were before. Now you can handle a lot more. Not saying that you have to spend more all the time, but when you make it more, you want to start saving more, if anything. And so being a homeowner can oftentimes give you those perks. And so for lead to my next question in regards to, again, going back to this pandemic, with the things about, the interest rates and your credit score and the type of financial responsibility that you have been able to uphold all this time, is it been anything new that you've seen in regards to this pandemic when it comes to home ownership that hasn't been quite pretty much been the case in previous years, when you're seeing more millennials buying homes and things like that? What are you seeing now in this industry or even in this sector, right? When it comes to like new developments are starting to build more and more homes now, because like you said, it's so much of a demand for it now that people are like looking to buy homes quickly. And within that turnaround time, what on average, that's my question, I'm sorry. What is the average turnaround time when it comes to the first day, buying a house and then signing the dot and putting the money towards it and then closing on that? Like what on average, what do those days look like?
So that time has actually been a lot longer than it had been prior to the pandemic, I think, because of more people wanted to do it, which poses this difficult challenge that we have now with getting offers accepted. So what would have taken someone from start to finish, you got approved, you went out looking in a couple of weeks, you found something, you were closing in 30 to 45 days. So we're talking about maybe 60 days max. That time period probably can be anywhere from 90 days to greater.
Yeah.
Because the biggest challenges now is to have that offer once that buyer has locked in on a particular property that they want to move forward with making an offer on, is having that offer accepted. So you could potentially have one particular home with numerous buyers bidding on that same property. So let's say that you don't get it. So that meant, okay, so then that's, I got to go out and go look again and go find the next one to bid on.
Yep.
So that process has been extended because of, where we are in the pandemic with more people wanting to purchase. Now, one of the things that I say that I tell buyers that could really help them, if they go in there with the mindset that there's no such thing as a perfect house. Stop looking for one. You live your whole 18, 20, 30 years. Your house wasn't perfect. Y'all house has some issues in it. Yep. So don't go in this, when I buy mine, I want to be the perfect house. It's not going to be perfect. There's no such thing. Yep. Have some reasonable expectations of what it is that you want. Yep. And then get that home and then make it look like what you want.
Absolutely. Make it your own.
So if it doesn't have everything you want, but it has most of the things of your boxes checked, go with that, as opposed to, no, I'm not going to be satisfied till I get that 100. And then you and everybody else trying to bid on that 100, you don't get it. Now you devastated. You don't know what to do. Now you lost because you missed out on the 75, 80% house that you could have easily have gotten, but you looking for that perfect house, and you and everybody else looking for that straw in the needle in a haystack.
Yep.
So just have realistic expectation will help to minimize how long it would take somebody from the looking, the showings, setting those up, getting them scheduled, then going through that whole financial mortgage process of getting really fully what we call the real process. That pre-approval says you look good on paper. We vetted some things about you, but now we got to really go through a little more detail and comb through all of your information. So, but the financial aspect, fortunately for buyers, once they have their contracts, their offer accepted, they're on the contract now, that time period can be on average about 30 days on average. Sometimes I've actually seen it where sometimes it's around 21 days, depending on how financially stable that particular borrower is. But there's, I would say, don't get discouraged because it is a different beast with trying to get offers accepted. Just be realistic in what you're willing to accept. And when you're realistic and you make those hard, difficult choices, like, okay, yep, this one really does have about 70, 80% of what we want. And it's in a great price range. It has everything that we want. And that other one that's 100, maybe that's something that I can aspire to on my next go round.
Absolutely.
And fill that list, because I promise you, when you get that 70 and 80, you make it look where you want and get it where you want it. You're going to see the things that you're going to want in another house, because you'll be saying, when I buy my next house, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Kind of like what you said. Okay, babe, we're going to make a compromise here, but when I get my next one, I'm going to do my man cave. It's those type of decisions. So yeah, the first one may not be everything that you wanted. It's understandable, but be willing to accept something for now because of what you're working for a future goal. And one of the things that I tell folks that is really amazing to me, and I want to interject this, when you go and do, let's say, for example, an apartment lease, I'm so amazed at how people do it with such ease. They don't know if that apartment person has insurance. They don't even know that when it burned down, they won't even protect their content.
Wow.
They don't know if it burned down, where they're going to go. They don't know if the Red Cross is going to run out of money to accommodate them and their family. They don't take any of that into consideration when they're renting. But somehow or another, when they go buy a house, we got to get a word from on high. We got to get 29 prayer partners to confirm and get a yay word. I don't understand it. When we were so comfortable signing off to rent a space that we didn't do any We didn't check it out with anybody. But now that we want to buy a house, we want to have something. I say that that's just kind of a twisted mindset that we've adapted renting so much so we excuse everything. But renting, we got to hold this holy grail. Now I got to go and take it before the pastor. And can you go take this to the Lord and get me a word of prayer? We need to stop.
We do need to stop that because listen, I want to just zone in real quick about that. So realistic expectation. We oftentimes have this dream and this fantasy wrapped up in our heads and in our minds that we're going to get this $500,000 to $1 million house the first go round. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. If you don't come from money, and I'm talking about money, I ain't talking about no little money. I'm talking about big money. If you're not coming from a wealthy family, your first house or your first hoorah in this whole situation, it's not going to be that mansion that you want. Right. So we have to be realistic about these things. Again, I'm going to say it again. Like I said it before, you got to get carried before you crawl, you got to crawl before you walk. It's levels to this. We have to work our way up to this. And unfortunately for us as Black people, we have several steps in addition to actually go through in order to get us ahead of life than our white counterparts. It is unfortunate because it's been a lot of discouraging and discriminatory things that's happened to us over the years. But guess what? In knowing that, we still have to basically push through that adversity, right? We know it's going to be some strikes against us because we're Black and because we live in a poor and crime-infested neighborhoods and things like that. So we're going to oftentimes be looked at as a high risk, if you will, in most cases. But with knowing that, is to go against the grain and prove to them, hey, listen, I'm not what you think I am. I have this much amount of money set aside. I'm very much financially responsible. I have my credit score up to par up to this particular point in time, and I'm looking to establish more on my credit so I can get to a better place. And I can't be thankful enough for the house that we're in now that has gotten us to that place financially where I'm not worried about anything financially. I'm not worried about a next meal. I'm not worried about when the bills are paid, any of those types of things. The types of worry I've had in my life personally, growing up in the city of Chicago, preferably in Inglewood, there were a lot of different disparaging times and moments in my life where I didn't see this type of thing happening to me. And you know what? By the grace of God and by his mercy and unchanging hand, I'm able to do much more for my family than what was done for me, unfortunately. But even still, it's still fortunate because now I was able to take those woes and those different things that I've experienced in my life and not replicate that. Right. I was able to apply what I learned in those times and be able to get to a place where I am now with my wife. And we're able to basically build something special for our children. And even before my kids were born, I've been putting money to the side every single week they've been alive, and even before then, because I want to set aside money for them when they graduate from high school and go off to college, be able to have their own cars. They already having money to side to basically start their own life off with in terms of wanting to purchase their own house. If they don't want to obviously keep the house that we have, if we don't want to keep the house that we have, one of the greatest things I've learned about having this house or having any house in general that you have obviously signed a deed on to own is that you gain so much more when you're invested in this house. If you want to sell the house in maybe 2-3 years, maybe 5 years for that matter, you get much more for the house than you initially put into it. And so, quick backstory, and this is my testimony personally, and I want to thank you again for this, because going through the process of selling our first house, knowing that the price that we initially bought the house in several years ago, when it got to the asking price, or when it got to the time of us discussing what we want to set the price to, you said something to me in regards to this. Looking around the neighborhood in which our house was residing in currently at that given moment in time, looking at the values of those houses, right? So the way a community works, and this is a beautiful analogy to put it in. So a way a community works, right? So the whole key word community is coming together in unity. So I will say this, each and every house in that community makes that neighborhood. And when everyone is taking care of their property in a proper way, that makes the neighborhood all the more valuable and much more appealing to those who are looking to buy a home in that neighborhood. And so when you don't have houses in that neighborhood that have liens on it, people who have been foreclosed on it, the values of those houses will go down if you do have liens and foreclosures in that neighborhood, because now it's being looked at as what's the proper term for that when it comes to that? So real quick, I want to ask that question.
It's a blighted neighborhood.
Okay. Okay. So that brings the value of your own home down, because the value of other homes in that neighborhood has been brought down due to foreclosure or liens and things like that. And so liens, you can get a lien for not paying your HOA fee, or anything like that can come up where you're not taking care of your house and your property, for that matter, the way everyone else has been basically obligated to do so. So in learning that, I remember seeing a house in our neighborhood that had been foreclosed on. Apparently the family just didn't want to keep the house. I think the spouses had divorced. One person left the house, and the other person left the house to them, and they didn't keep the house up. And so what they did was they basically lost it in foreclosure, but they had X amount of days to stay in it before they were actually told to live out, to be out of the house so they can resell the house. When we saw the value of the house that was being put up by the bank, I looked at it and said, you know what? We can get just as much money for our house as they getting for theirs. And lo and behold, we got more for our house than what I expected we were going to get for it. And so much is that, and this is something that I want you to kind of expound on too, with cash offers as well as other offers from potential homeowners who are looking to buy your house too, and going through the bank. So you have the two different types of loans. I remember you said it's a traditional loan, and can't remember the other one. I'll kind of break that down in essence to our listeners real quick in regards to those different types of loans that you can be eligible for.
Sure, absolutely. So there are various loan products available to purchase a home. There's what we call that's what is known as the FHA program, which is the Federal Housing Association. Is where they have guidelines where they dictate based on that have a way to become homeowners. They have a program that's affordable, that appeals to, say, first-time buyers as well as move-up buyers, because they offer low down payment, very low down payment. There's also what is known as the VA, which is available to the veterans, those that have served the military. So they have a program for the military, because of their service to our country, where they can purchase a home with literally no money down. Yeah. There's another program, which is probably the one that you're referencing, Marlon. It's called the conventional financing. Yeah, yes. With conventional financing, that is kind of known as what most folks call more or less like the traditional financing, which doesn't have quite as many guidelines as the government financing. First-time home buyers can also have what they call as a low down payment conventional financing, or they can get the typical or traditional one where there's at least a 5% down payment on their type of financing. So there are various financing options available to any given borrower based on their credit worthiness. Maybe you have a good credit score, but you don't have the down payment money, all of it, or at least a 5% of it. Maybe you have a lower down payment amount, but your credit score is good. So FHA may be favorable for that borrower. Or maybe there's someone who has a larger amount for down payment, and maybe their credit score is not as high as they would want it to be. They may qualify for the conventional financing because they can put more cash into the transaction. So there are various programs available, but there again, that's why you need to have a team of a good realtor and a loan officer that work in tandem together so that they can help navigate, and just knowing the status of each particular borrower, where they would be better suited. So that's one of the benefits of that.
And you know what? And another question I want to ask you in regards to this. So the one thing I learned in this process of selling our last home and purchasing this one is that, you know, obviously banks will give you, if you're eligible for, like, let's just say $500,000, right? So if the banks give you a $500,000 loan, it doesn't necessarily mean that the house that you're getting should be at that tipping point, at that very top mark, right? You should want to, is it true to get a house, like, for whatever the amount the bank has approved you for or pre-approved you for, should you get a house at that very dollar amount, or should it be much less of that amount, so that way you have some wiggle room to work with and negotiate with a development company or even a potential home seller. Like, what should that median or that particular space of amount to of that should be? What should that be?
Okay, so let's take your example of a borrower that's approved for $500,000. So in this market where you want to make sure that you have a better chance of getting your offer accepted, you may want to look at a house that's somewhere around about a 450.
Yeah.
So that in the event that you have to make an offer and it's a multiple offer situation, you have some leeway to put in some additional funding. So if the house is 450, but you really want it, there's multiple offers, you know that there are several offers already that they're considering, maybe offering, a higher dollar amount may give you that additional edge so that they accept your offer. But if you're already at the $500,000 and you looked at a house for 500, it's going to be hard to have that strategy because you can't get an approval greater than where you are.
Absolutely.
So you already at the top. So
Yep.
There's not a lot of wiggle room that you as a potential borrower will have so that you can get your offer accepted. So I would say the answer to your question is whatever your amount that you've been approved is, to find a home that's represent amount that's much less than that, so you'll have an additional resources to draw from should you need it to get your offer accepted. Of course, if you didn't have to use, let's say you're approved for 500,000, you made an offer for on this 450 home for 460, you still have that $40,000 that you didn't even have to use.
Yep.
And that's very good too, because then that means that if you were approved for the 5, more than likely the 460, you going to be very comfortable. So not saying it's on every case because taxes and insurance goes into that as well, but you definitely have a greater likelihood.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And to that point about the offers, which blew my mind the way this process worked the second go round, right? So in seeing that we had an abundance of offers on the first house, and then the process of looking for the current house that we got. So just give you guys a testimonial backstory on how this worked for me and my family. So when we first put our house up on the market, before Donna even put pictures up of our house, we had maybe, I think, 2 or 3 offers on the house, just on the description alone. I had never seen nothing like that in my life. I thought to myself, who in the world even puts down a house that they ain't even put their eyes on yet? Like, how does that even work? Like, have you seen that a lot where people would just like, oh, based on the description of this house, how many rooms in it, how many bathrooms, X, Y, and Z. Oh, I want to put an offer on this house right now. Like, does that happen often in the real estate industry?
I wouldn't say often, but this is how that particular, there are certain buyers, how they strategize. They watch listings for certain neighborhoods, yours being one that was being watched, unbeknownst to us. Okay. When they saw that listing came for the neighborhood, they knew the neighborhood well enough that they said, I don't care. Like you said, everything in that neighborhood looks good. If anything comes on the market, if it remotely reads what we want, we're going for it, even if we didn't see it. We know when it was built. We know the community. We bought in there before. So they knew the area very well. And there are buyers out there that they target certain communities, certain neighborhoods, and they just go after that particular neighborhood. So they don't need all of the pictures. I actually have people buying houses. Sometimes they don't even see the house after it's under contract.
Wow.
They don't even see it after it's under contract. They hope the pictures were correct. They hope that they weren't being misled.
Yeah, hopefully, because I mean, if you get too far in the contract negotiation process, then you can't pull back that offer, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I figured that was the case. But
so it worked out for them because they just decided they would just see the house during the time for the inspection period. They would see the house then, and that way they can decide if they wanted to stay in it. But that's just some strategies that a seasoned, well-established realtor would be able to point out.
Yeah.
You know?
And I do see a lot of cases too where a house is not even built yet, but now people have put basically an offer on the property of where their house is going to be. And so, and a lot of times they give them opportunities to have some input in the design of the house, depending on how much more money they want to put into the house. And so I thought that was pretty fascinating to learn that too, because it's like, okay, you don't even know what this house is going to look like. They just gave you kind of an architectural sketch of what it would look like ultimately. But if you want to add some things to it, because if your offer was already accepted, now you can kind of like basically have some wiggle room and say, okay, I want this to look different. Make that a little bigger than this, or it's a little smaller than that, or add this additional piece to that. Because now you basically are now kind of the sole owner of that property and what that house is going to ultimately look like on that property. And so a lot of different fascinations about this process that I learned too. And getting back to the story, where when we first put our house on the market, the first house, you know, it just like amazed us at how fast people wanted to come in and see the house. It got to a point where one day we were getting ready to leave the house, and it was other realtors who had, you know, potential home buyers come and look in the house. We hadn't left the house yet. So the way it works is you have to be out of the house. You want to make sure you don't have any personal things displayed out there, because you want to be able to give the potential homeowner, that home buyer rather, an idea of what that house will look like if and when it becomes their own. And so when they came in, well, before they was able to come in, we were getting ready to walk out of the house. People were already walking into our house. I'm like, hey, wait, hold on one second. This is still our house now. Y'all about to get cussed out up in here, just walking in here. Like, we don't know y'all people. I'm like, okay, just give us time to at least get our stuff and get out of the house first, so y'all can see the fullness of the house. It's like they kind of like threw me for a loop a little bit. I was like, okay, I ain't gonna, you know, pull out nothing on these folks, but I'm gonna be okay right now. Give us time to get out of the house. And so, and then at the same time that was happening, we were out looking for houses for a new house for ourselves. And so when we came across this house, and this is amazing how God works, right? So, because you brought up just the whole religion and belief and getting what you ultimately want to get out of a house, right? And when we came across this house, I remember the day we came to come see this house. After we see other houses that didn't quite measure up to what we wanted in the next house, we was like, okay, we're gonna still look around. There's a few other places that you kept telling us, be encouraged. You always, and that is the key thing that I can't thank you enough for. You kept us encouraged, you kept us motivated, and knowing that we were going to find another house and find the house that we ultimately wanted in that given moment in time, especially given that we already put our house on the market and it was going to be a quick turnaround. We just didn't know how fast of a turnaround this is going to be. So this is how it worked. So it was just amazing how when we came across this house, we had seen other houses. We wanted to put a potential offer on one house. We know that particular homeowner never got back to us, never replied to any of the messages and calls that we were trying to communicate with them and see about coming to come see the house and having a open house or whatever, to have people come view the house and things like that. So we said, okay, we're going to just wipe that away. We ain't going to worry about that one. Then we came across this one night, coming across this house that night. The very next day, we went to go see the house. When we came to come see this house, it had to have been a line of folks waiting outside the house like it was a new Harry Potter book that just got published or something. Like, it was just amazing to me that this many people wanted to see this house. And as we walked in the door, looking at the house for ourselves, I told Olivia, I said, listen, we're going to tell Donna right now, we're putting it off on this house. Tell these folks is waiting outside, go find another house. We get this house. No. We're not going to look nowhere else. We want this house. We're going to put it off on this house. That's the bottom line to that, right? So speed up to the time that we actually found out that the offer was taken. So the way this works really blew my mind, because this was nothing but God. So that very next night, because we were waiting around after we had just talked to you, and you told us, okay, well, generally about Monday or Tuesday, we should hear something back from the homeowner on whether or not he's going to take our offer or took somebody else offer, whatever. So obviously you have been in conversations with the homeowner, letting them know that we're looking to purchase this house, X, Y, and Z. And then you came back to us the night before the initial day. You told us we were going to hear back from them. And you said they accepted your offer. When you said that, because you asked us, we already put the kids to bed, and everybody sleeping. It was late at night, and we were just talking up. We were up still, like, kind of strategizing how we're going to do this, and we were still looking at other houses that we would potentially look at if things didn't fall through with this house. So once you came back and told us that the reason why he even accepted our offer is the funny thing about it was He got 13 offers on this house. The only reason why he even took our offer was because we were able to be flexible with this particular homeowner and letting them rather stay in the house until they found themselves a new house, while we basically signed off on being the new owners of the house. So basically being a homeowner without a home in that given moment in time. So we thought to ourselves, I said, you know what, baby, this would make more sense to do this. If we're going to agree to this, he needs to agree to our terms too. If we're going to agree to basically own this house and not live in it for that time being, for those 30 days that he needs to look for a new house, he's going to have to pay us for every day he's going to be in this house. And so came back to you, I said, okay, how much money would be a respectable amount to pay per day for him to basically, agree with and say, okay, given this much time, if I'm able to find a house, then I'll be able to not only pay y'all that, but I'll just move into, an apartment or things like that. And then, go from there and searching for a new house. So, okay, fine. The fact that he agreed to that, obviously, thank God for my relatives that live in Lawrenceville, who I love dearly, who was able to let us stay there for those 4 weeks. And he did not mind paying us for every day that he stayed in the house. And so the fact that everyone else that he had got offers from prior to us was like, listen, we're ready to move in right now. We don't have that much time. We can't afford you that much amount of time to look for another house. You got to already have your own house within next week or a couple of days from now, because we want to move in right now. It was like, well, that's not feasible for me. I'm not going to be able to do that. I need more time to find my own new home as well as sell this one. And so the fact that we were the only ones to even grant him that much leeway and in that time, that was a blessing within itself, because God was able to say, this is the house for you all. This is what you need to do. Hold off and just basically just hold on until you're able to officially move into the house. And then you'll be able to be comfortable in this house. You have family. Thank God for family for allowing us to stay with them in that time span that we were able to do so. And then once that time was up, he cut us a check. We was able to sign a deed on this house, move in, start doing renovation, painting, new carpet, all this other wonderful stuff. This was a true testament to what patience looks like, one, and two, what God's graces looks like when it comes to ultimately getting what you want out of the house, out of your dream home. We love this house. We love what we've been doing to the house so far, and we love what we're planning to do in the near future for this house too, to make it truly our own. And we can't do nothing but thank you for that, and obviously thank God for that too. But we thank God for you for placing us, giving us this opportunity, giving us this amount of knowledge and information that you've been able to grant us in learning about all of this, because being a new homeowner can be overwhelming at times, because there's so much information to impact and unfold. But when you have a strong support team, you have a spouse, a loving and supportive spouse to be there with you throughout the entirety of this process, then it makes it all the more okay to go through, because now you have that in place and you have that strong support system with you to help you get through this whole process. And so again, Donna, I can't thank you enough for what you've been able to do for us. And I scream it to the top of my lungs. If you're looking for a realtor, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in the Atlanta area, this is the woman you need to be looking for. You need to be inquiring about, how do I do this, do that? She knows the ins and outs of this industry. She knows what you're going to look for. She knows what you need and what you don't need, because a lot of things has happened or has discouraged people based on the things that they thought they didn't need, or the things that they did need, they didn't think they needed much of. And it was like so much misinformation been given to them over the course of their lives. And it's like, it has discouraged them from becoming potential homeowners and home buyers. And so it's best that we get ourselves educated and enlightened on this, because we're missing out on what that generational wealth looks like when it comes to investing in this huge asset and possibly leaving it to our kids and grandkids when we're gone. And so this is something we can't afford to miss out on any more than what we already have. And so again, I thank you so much for that. And again, you are a true godsend to us. And I just appreciate you so much, because every information that you've been giving us, we've been giving to everybody else. We even referred another couple to you, another who has a small family who's looking for a new house too. They had some of the same questions, and I remember talking to them. I said, "Listen, I said that same exact thing, but guess what? Donna helped us with this whole situation. She said this. This was the case. This wasn't the case. Don't listen to that. This is the truth of the matter." And she has helped us tremendously with even getting ourselves established in this new home, being financially well off in terms of being financially stable, and just empowering us economically from this standpoint has been truly a blessing within itself when it comes to establishing ourselves as young people, because ultimately we want to be able to, start that family and be able to have something for our families to look forward to when they get older.
Outstanding, outstanding. I'm honored to have been a part of the process. No, that's all his doing, but I'm just glad that I was just a tool to use.
Absolutely. And faith without works is dead. So you
Absolutely.
can't just have all this faith. Now, I've said this on a number of occasions too. Now, funny enough, we met Donna at our church. So we've had Pastor Brown on this podcast too, to talk to us from a religious standpoint on how things work and how we can't just have faith and not do the work. Because
Right.
God has blessed us and given us the grace and mercy and the know-how to do some of these things. If we're not applying what he's taught us, then we basically at a standstill saying, "Oh, we're just gonna pray it away." You can't just pray things away. You gotta do your part.
Now do your part.
It's imperative that you do your part, because you're missing out on so many things thinking that God is just gonna just do it for you, when he's blessed you with the tools and know how to do it for yourself and meet him halfway and let him do the rest. And so
Right.
that,
Absolutely.
again, thank you so much for being on this show. We touched on so many different things. I want to definitely have you on the show again to kind of circle back to talk about more of this, and anything else that we didn't touch much more on, we can definitely touch on again. My last question to you is, for people who are looking for a very much so charismatic, loving, and intelligent and experienced realtor like yourself, if they want to look for you, preferably, I'm hoping that this gets you an abundance of recommendations and referrals, that you say, "Okay, listen, I got to send you somebody else, because this my plate is full now. I can't take no more referrals at this given moment in time, because I got so many other people that I'm trying to get to." Now, if people want to reach out to you, how do they get a chance to reach out to you, to ask you if they're just inquiring about just overall the whole aspects of becoming a homeowner, whether they want to want you as their or have you as their realtor, or whether you can be available to them as a realtor, or even just the overall knowledge and information that they're looking to obtain when it comes to what they want to look for and becoming potential home buyers? How can they reach you?
Yes, it's very easy to find me. You can Google me, Donna Mungin, DonnaMungin. You can shoot me a text message at 770-843-2575. Again, 770-843-2575. I'm always on my phone, so you can always reach me via text. You can find me on Facebook, but don't look for me to respond to you on Facebook. I'm not that person. I'm not that agent. I'm not.
Absolutely.
So if you really want to get a hold of me directly, just shoot me a text message and just say, can we have a conversation? I'm here and I can answer your questions, and I'm available.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Like I said, I'll be able to provide this information to everyone in the description of this episode, so you can obviously look forward to that when I post it, and definitely make sure you reach out to her if you have any inquiries about what it means to be a homeowner, what you need to have, what you don't need to have, what type of misnomers and misconceptions you've been told all your life, or just a number of years now leading up to this time, and just what it means to be responsibly financial in this industry when it comes to having a home that you make your own and becoming that potential homeowner or home buyer, and even home seller for that matter too, because it's a big difference between the two things, right? The two entities
Absolutely.
obviously vary, and so you can speak to that as well. And definitely when I have you back on the show, we can talk about the ins and outs and perks behind selling a home versus purchasing it too. But
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to do that. Just let me know and we'll coordinate our schedules.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much, Auntie Donna, for being on this show. And you can't get rid of us. We are your nieces and nephews now.
I know, right? I love you guys. I never would it would cross my mind. I love me and Madeline. We had a good time together hanging out. So yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Just let me know, and I'm here to serve, and however way I can be of service to your audience.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you listening who are not subscribers, and those of you who are viewers as well who are not subscribers, be sure to like, share, subscribe to my YouTube page to see previous episodes of this podcast, as well as soon to be episodes in the upcoming weeks, months, and obviously throughout this whole entire 2022 year. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to it on my Instagram and Facebook page, as well as on Spotify and all other podcast platforms like Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts too. So be looking for more episodes like this, because this information is going to be very vital, and we're touching on a lot of different bases as it pertains to what information needs to be dispersed to our Black community, because we know what we need to do and how we need to go about getting ahead in life and being advanced and advancing our culture. It's all about getting this information out, and that's what I'm here to do. So thank you again for being on the show. Like, share, subscribe to this YouTube page and Spotify, and we'll be talking again soon. Auntie Donna, thank you so much again for being on the show.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. If you like what you've heard from this week's episode and would like to hear more from previous episodes, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel below. You can also find me on social media platforms at Speak to the Mic _podcast show on Instagram and Speak to the Mic podcast show on Facebook. Be sure to also like, share, and subscribe to my Spotify page at Speak to the Mic podcast show. As I put out more thought-provoking content, your opinion and thoughts are needed and appreciated. I thank you all in advance for your support and look forward to hearing from you soon.